presentation, I will go over some very important factors of Kamiak Butte and how it came to form, as well as what goes into life on Kamiak Butte from an ecological standpoint. We will also look at specific contributing ideas to why the butte functions how it does and the foundation of geological processes. We will begin by looking at the geological foundations. More than 200 million years ago, Pangaea started to break apart due to the motion of tectonic plates that reside in the lithosphere. With the movement of these plates creating boundaries near Pullman, Kamiak Butte was formed. Much of Kamiak Butte consists of flood basalt and quartzite rock. The flood basalts that you can see today happened around 6 million years ago. Flood basalts come from feeder dikes connected to the surface of the crust that pour out lava. Kamiak Butte and Steptoe Butte are just small fractions of the land that these basalts cover. During the Ice Age, many floods happened due to glacial Lake Missoula, and that had carved out much of the desert area around Washington and Idaho. During the glacial retreat, silt was blown into the Palouse, providing rich soil for vegetation to grow and for farmers to grow crops around the base of Kamiak Butte. The Ice Age is very important to the formation of Kamiak Butte in the sense that glacial flooding events created paths and carved out land, and the timing of the most recent Ice Age and the Wallula Gap all contribute to the soils placed there. These deposits are made up of loess soil, and the source of soil is at Wallula Gap, and silt was transported downwind. The next topic we will talk about are macroclimates. There are 10 different macroclimates that split up North America, and the lines that split up each section is not definite. They all depend on the continentality, topography, and air masses. Macroclimates also affect these areas as the region where Kamiak Butte is. This is classified as marine modified continental, which means cold winters, dry and hot summers, and a peak precipitation period in the winter. Next, we will talk about climate interactions. Climate at Kamiak Butte is determined by the weather changing and how the atmosphere is behaving. The weather is the temperature, cloud cover, humidity, and storms. The biome is a large area that includes flora and fauna in a major habitat such as the forest area at Kamiak Butte that is home to wildlife and an assortment of plants that contribute to the area. The macroclimate is marine modified continental at Kamiak Butte, and the origin of air masses are temperature and moisture of global air masses determined by area of origin and route of movement. Kamiak Butte is affected by marine polar and continental polar air masses that also play a role on the soils that are in the area that can hold precipitation and provide water and nutrients for organisms. Continentality is a measure of the influence of a land mass on climate and is one of the basic characteristics of climate. You can compare the change in temperature between night and day in western and eastern Washington in the summer. The durational shift of temperature in western Washington is gradual, but in eastern Washington it is much more extreme. Topography combined with vegetation cover and soil will determine the specific character of microclimates, such as on the north side of Kamiak Butte there is a lot of flora and trees that flourish on that side, and on the south side there's very little amounts of shrubs and the wind carries the heat from the solar radiation. We will now talk about North America western interior shrublands and woodland biomes. A terrestrial biome is a region of land that has similar climate and that has similar communities of plants and animals. They are usually defined in terms of plants such as trees, shrubs, and grasses. Ecologists focus on the biomes to understand the diversity of life on Earth, and biomes are the first link to the connection between biota, climate, and environments that organisms live in, and they represent the results of the process of natural selection that has produced biota that are adaptable to the environment characters of climate regions. The western interior shrub steppe and woodland is the biome that houses Kamiak Butte and the Palouse. There have been disturbances to this biome in Kamiak Butte due to human interaction and agricultural crops. Due to anthropogenic interference, the original Palouse vegetation has been reduced significantly and the agricultural land has taken over. The human landscapes, which is an area of Earth's terrestrial surface, are direct human alterations to the ecological processes. Kamiak Butte is within the Palouse Hills anthropogenic landscape, which is rooted in agricultural crops. We will now talk about the Kamiak Butte experience and the virtual field trip. The north and south aspects of Kamiak Butte differ drastically, and there are a lot of processes and analysis that show us how they are different. From the south aspect having fewer and smaller trees to the north aspect being very dense and full of large, tall trees. We go to look closer at the carbon and nitrogen sequestration on each aspect of the butte and compare how each organism lives and uses its resources. More nitrogen is available for plants on the north aspect of Kamiak Butte because there is more plant life in the area, which when the plants drop their dead leaves and other dead materials, they decompose and release ammonium. This ammonium will go through the nitrogen cycle and become nitrate, which the plants can incorporate into themselves. The north aspect has favorable growing conditions for trees, shrubs, and other vegetation in the area and can help trees grow taller and have larger diameters. The amount of biomass on the north aspect is due to its better growth conditions, and it is assumed that the north and south aspect would have the same amount of carbon readily available to them in the atmosphere. However, the north aspect has much more nitrogen and water available as well, and therefore can have more carbon uptake. The south aspect of Kamiak Butte has very little trees and vegetation. Having less plants on this side of the butte can result in lower levels of nitrogen. Looking at data collected from both south and north aspects of Kamiak Butte, we can see that the ratios of carbon to nitrogen are very similar, but there is a large difference between the northern aspects, which has more vegetation in the trees that can use the resources that are available to them. Overall, there is more vegetation and better resources for plants to grow on the north aspect rather than the south aspect due to ecological functions and processes. To understand the wildlife on Kamiak Butte, I will start by defining a couple terms such as population and speciation. A population is a group of individuals of the same species that live within a particular area at the same time and interact with one another. Speciation is an important aspect to include in looking at the species present on Kamiak Butte. There are 4 types of speciation, such as allopatric, peripatric, parapatric, and sympatric. Speciation is the evolutionary process by which populations evolve and become distinct species. The southeastern Washington Palouse landscape contains several buttes, but Kamiak Butte adds significant variation to the physical environment. Most of the Palouse is open agricultural land, and this does not provide much cover or a suitable home for animals that need to be able to hide or blend in. Kamiak Butte has a restrictive environment, which means that there is a variation in the spatial and temporal environment and is promoted by natural selection. Although no environment ever achieves a constant condition, the restrictive environment will make it difficult for some individuals to exist. With these changing conditions, it is evident that not every individual will survive, but you can see on Kamiak Butte which organisms are able to stay alive, such as ungulates, hawks, moose, and other small predators. Ecological niche is also very important to look at, as an ecological niche is a core concept of ecology. It is defined as the physical and functional roles of an organism within an ecosystem. Functional niche is the role that organisms play in the community and how it works within the food chain. In the Palouse grasslands of southeastern Washington, the grasses and forbs photosynthesize, and they produce the largest biomass component in the ecosystem, and these provide food to the grasshoppers and are called primary producers. The grasshoppers then are categorized as primary consumers because they eat the producers, but they also provide food for the quail and the ground squirrels. These 2 animals are considered to be secondary consumers, and they feed on the primary producers and primary consumers. These kind of animals are known as omnivores. Above the quail and the ground squirrel is the coyote, and they are tertiary consumers, which primarily eats the small animals, and this would be categorized as a carnivore. Dispersal is an important aspect to look at on Kamiak Butte, as it is a large factor that plays a role in plant migration. Dispersal is defined as the movement of individuals or propagules of individuals of a population. There are many different kinds of dispersals, such as population, natal, and breeding. Dispersion is a result of dispersal, and is the spatial arrangement of individuals or distribution of propagules of individuals within a population. Dispersal of individuals of a population results in a pattern of occupancy of suitable microclimates across habitats of the population. You are able to see dispersal in the types of trees present on each aspect of Kamiak Butte. Plant dispersal mechanisms involve movements of propagules away from the parent plant, and they are mostly passive, such as wind, water, animals, and gravity. The animals in the area, such as ungulates and birds, can eat part of the tree and consume seeds. While staying in the area, they can drop the seeds from their mouths nearby, or it can be dispersed through scat. As well as wind and other natural occurrences, dispersal happens across Kamiak Butte, and this provides growth of the ecosystem and growth of populations.